as a default, basically, the community understands how to get a hold of my office and where to find it. And it's verges on irrational to put your corporate communications department in anything that's out of the way or unconventional or hard to find. I mean, even Culver Street, to my mind, is difficult and off the beaten path, and that's a well-recognized building within this county. So I say that with both organizations have very similar needs in that regard. The BIA needs to be there for its membership. It needs to be accessible. It's part of the downtown community. In fact, it's central to the downtown community in many ways. Alternatively, with the corporate communications, yeah, there will be days when a number of those staff are working at their desk, creating the various documents and advertising and publicity and commenting online and monitoring forums, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that is a function that you need some ready access to, and in turn needs some ready access to this chamber and this facility. I mean, part of its mandate will be doing some communications work out of what happens here virtually every Tuesday of the year, by way of example. So there is some importance for each to have a centralized, high-profile location. I think there's great benefit to each. In the event that council goes forward with preferring the BIA, obviously, at a senior staff level, we will start brainstorming pretty quickly on trying to find, and we have facility staff who will come up with a number of options. This is I can't speak for the BIA. This seems like an excellent opportunity for them. Vicariously, I can say that. I can say on behalf of the Corporate Communications Department that doesn't technically exist as yet, that this is the ideal location for them too. Really, it's a great spot, and only one of the two can get it, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And just my last comment, just what I said before, even though I don't think we have anything in writing in terms of first right of refusal, I think we're morally obligated, since we've had these discussions with the BIA, talking to them. I think we need to offer it to them under the basis of kind of a first right of refusal, and if, like I said, if they decline, we can easily go back to the default and the 4 communications people.
Okay, further? I've got a question, Mr. CEO. My understanding is the Chamber of Commerce, Simcoe, and the BIA, they've amalgamated administrative duties. So we're always talking the BIA here. Does the Chamber of Commerce still have an office in Simcoe, or would they be relocating their staff to the BIA office?
For that, if you want.
Right.
Yeah, well, the BIA, there is one general manager for the BIA and the Chamber of Commerce, and he's sitting right over there. His name's Jim McGimsey. They're still working out details of the relationship and the partnership, so that is yet to come.
So would the Simcoe Chamber of Commerce office then close, and there would be two administrations coming into one in the same office space, which would be coming under the BIA?
They're working towards that, but there's nothing to report right now.
Certainly sounds like a win-win for them, but any comment?
No, I believe that's an accurate characterization.
Okay, do we have a motion for the recommendation, and it's moved by Councillor Black, seconded by Councillor Oliver, and it is option 1, I will read it. That report CEO 1828, cab 2, tenant options be received as information. And that County Council instruct the General Manager, Employee Corporate Services to take the appropriate steps to initiate option 1, including the execution of any staffing, legal, or administrative actions and documentation required to effect the same. That's the way it reads. Any further discussion? Councillor Wells.
Before I vote, could I ask the County Manager if we approve this, where would he be looking for the 4 people? Would we be renting space for the 4 staff that we need to find space for? Please.
It is When I say no other good option has been identified, that is an accurate statement of truth. In the event council prefers to go forward with the BIA, I can tell you tomorrow morning, this will be a task assigned to a number of persons who draw paychecks here to attempt to determine the best possible fit for a communications department that will exist at roughly the end of the year. We really don't have a plan B, but we haven't, and also in fairness, this is relatively early in the game, so we've identified an ideal option. We really don't have a second, but in fairness, we also haven't gone too far down that road. There is not another location at present.
Go ahead, Councilor Wells.
In fairness, and I appreciate what you've said, but do you think you will be able to find something else for the 4 staff? Because that's pretty important too. We're kind of in a rock and a hard place here.
Even if ultimately we will find a place, it will not be as good. That I can say with absolute certainty. This is the ideal, probably for both organizations.
Councilor Broughton.
Mr. Chairman, let me ask another question here to our county manager. Can you, and I must have been asleep at the switch here, these people now are working, are they not? The 4 people you are identifying?
We have to be very careful with the answers to those questions. There will be 4 new jobs created, one of which the posting closes tomorrow. I'm getting a nod. So that for the Director of Corporate Communications, that posting, I believe, closes tomorrow. And then there will be 3 new jobs, as approved by council, posted after we want the director to be able to help hire his or her staff. There may well be qualified individuals and staff who can apply for those, or from outside. We make no statements there. There are 4.6 human beings on staff doing work dispersed throughout the corporation. I can't make statements as to who will have the new jobs. But I think what you're driving at is there not already space for 4.6 people? And while the answer to that is yes, they're literally in different buildings over, well, I think they're maybe all in Simcoe, but they're spread all over the place. There's no vacant spot for a dedicated team. That's a fair answer.
I guess my question is it necessary that they all have to be in one spot? Or can they be, as they are now, spread out?
No, sir. The entire premise of the business model is to create a dedicated team working together in unison. And part of the reason we believe we're able to go from 4.6 to 4.0 staff is to have immediate coverage and sort of teamwork on ongoing communications type projects, being that the Parks and Rec guide, the posters, flyer, whatever happens to be they're working on. So it is important to keep them assembled in a identifiable unit.
Well, I guess I'm just starting to wonder, like, if there are 4 people technically doing this work now across the county, that will it not reduce the workload if we create a new department in all different areas? Will it not reduce the workload for certain people? Or am I missing the point on that? Like, is there that much work that 4 people that are handling that work now, if you bring that all into one spot, will it not reduce the requirements of some of the departments or all the departments?
Again, that's actually not the point of this report, and we're getting way off base, but what this council already approved by unanimous vote is the notion of redistributing resources. So the money, the budgets for those staff are going with those positions, which will become 4.0 persons employed in the communications department. So yes, there will be less work done by way of example only in public health. Those dollars are going to be redistributed to the communications department that will now do public health promotions and messaging out of the communications department. So to an extent, it's a shell game moving from across the corporation into one department, and everyone's giving up a bit of something in their budgets to make this happen, much like we did with the county solicitor. Took bits from legal budgets all over the corporation and concentrated in one office. Same thing, but with communications.
Okay, we'll try to stay on to the point here. I see Councillor Sonnenberg, you had your hand up again?
Mr. Chair, it just makes a whole lot more sense to me that the BIA and the Chamber could utilize space anywhere in town and be effective, okay? They're in Simcoe. What difference does it make where they are? On the other hand, our communications department would be right next door to our flagship building here, with the mayor's office, the CAO's office, the treasury's office, on the same property. Does that not make more sense? Thank you.
Anything further? I have one question for you, Mr. CAO. In your good conscience, are we obligated in any way today to the BIA?
We've had very fruitful discussions, and I think there's I would characterize the relations, at least at the staff level, but as far as more at the board-to-board level, of collegiality and mutual respect. I would not want it said, certainly from our perspective, and I read very much from Mr. McGimsey's, but the BIA's generally, that everyone's serious in their expressions to each other, and so they've all been well meant. So no one's been stringing anyone along as far as I can tell, either looking in the mirror or looking across the table. That being said, we're preliminary in nature. Nothing's been to that board, and things die at the staff level all the time. Any number of projects don't succeed. Any number of initiatives fail for whatever reason. It's an exploratory business relationship looking to possibly augment an existing business relationship. But could walk away from that with heads held high, having explored fully. That being said, certainly there's a reason to carry on as well, depending on council's vote.
So I take it we are not obligated in any way. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Black and Councillor Oliver. Going to call the vote. This is for option 1. Those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is opposed. That is carried. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Good discussion. It's 1 o'clock past, so we will do the deputation. If we could have Adam Very come to the podium, please. You got 10 minutes, Adam. Welcome.
We good? We're good. I'm here in my capacity as the chair of the Port Dover Board of Trade again. This time I'm here to talk about the Lynn River Music and Arts Festival, which is in Simcoe. So this year's event is going to be the 51st year that the event, which was previously the Simcoe Friendship Festival, has been held. This year's event will feature 3 stages of live entertainment, food vendors, craft and commercial vendors. We have a kids zone, live pie auction, which is new this year, a rubber duck race, and a beer garden. The admission to the event is still free, as it has been all along. In addition to being Simcoe's largest summer event and offering free family-friendly entertainment, the festival is an important fundraiser for many local clubs and organizations. Many groups rent booth space to raise funds through sales, food and merchandise, such as the Simcoe Lions, Simcoe Rotary Club, and others. They also some do raffles, draws, and whatever else they can think of to generate funding for their organizations. This is the second year that the Port Dover Board of Trade will be putting on the festival. The Board of Trade took over management of the event last year after the Rotary Club of Simcoe voted to cease its involvement. The Board of Trade, I realize that some people are still juggling why does a Port Dover organization run an event in Simcoe, simply because no one in Simcoe came forward to take it over, and rather than let it go, I convinced my board to take it on. That's really the only reason. And yeah, like I say, the Board of Trade is doing it we look at it as I want to be clear, a partnership initiative and fundraising opportunity. Partnership being that we see this as working with Simcoe, not that we're trying to take over anything in Simcoe. So if a Simcoe group ever does emerge that wants to retake it over, we will gladly relinquish that event back to Simcoe. We're just placeholders for now. In light of this, I'm asking Norfolk County to commit $5,000 toward the cost of live entertainment at this year's festival. We've already raised 10,000 towards live entertainment. We've budgeted about 18, so now we can cover that extra little bits here and there, but that will come out of the money that we raise, which is the beer tent money, which is the fundraising nut of it. So what we're hoping is that the county will make a significant financial contribution to the ongoing operation of the event so that we can continue to maintain its fundraising benefits to local groups. That's basically it. I can answer any questions you'd like about the festival. I am a committee of one right now, so I have all the answers.
Okay, thank you, Adam. You're ready for questions. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Adam, thank you very much for being here.
Yeah.
I just wondered why you were so late in getting here. The event is going to happen soon, is it not?
Oh, yeah, so I think meant today. I was like, no, I was right on time, man.
No.
No, why I'm late in getting here? Well, why I'm late in getting here is a couple of reasons. One, we were trying to, part of what I'm doing as the festival chair is I'm trying to make it sustainable so that it becomes attractive to someone in Simcoe or to a group in Simcoe to want to take it on. It's a ton of work. And there is some money there, and that's why I keep at it, because I do believe that this can be a good fundraiser as well, not just sustainable, but a good profitable event. Last year it was profitable in the sense that many groups benefited, but it's not profitable in the sense that we can hand it off. So what I was trying to do is get sponsors and get people on board so that we could do it, frankly, without the county's help. That's why I'm later. And I'm getting to the point where I have to accept that we're not going to get there without the county's help, so that we're going into it at a break even. That's why I'm here so late.
Yes, Councillor Wells.
If he were to give you this money this year,
Yeah.
will you be here next year asking as well?
My hope is not. I mean, I don't want to say yes or no. And the reason I can't say no is because I don't know. I don't want to go back on what I've said something. My intention is to not be here year after year. I realized I was here last year. I realized that at the time, I can't remember who it was specifically, but somebody told me not to do this again this year. And I have to do it anyways because we just need the cash to make the event successful. I want to preempt a question. Why didn't we apply through the grant program? Because I didn't know that we'd need it, and also because at the end of last year's event, the longtime event coordinator retired. And so we weren't sure you were going to be able to do this event, but we've hired someone else, we've got her in place, we've got her caught up. So I feel like we're in a strong position. I didn't want to apply then, get approved, and then potentially take away funds from another group if we were going to then not do the event because of the retirement. So, as they say, the road to hell and everything is paved in good intentions. So that's where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Okay, one last time, Councillor Wells.
If we do not give you the grant, $5,000, will the event go on as planned?
It's okay. So yeah, we're kind of in the middle. So yeah, will it go on? Yeah. I mean, we're not going to cancel it a month away. For sure, we're not going to do that. Will we have to scale back some of the bands and some of the commitments we've made? Yeah, there's no question. Like we can't. The Board of Trade's happy to do this. We're happy to put the resources that we have towards it, including the office expenses and whatever else. We manage the employee that we've now got. We pay that. We're happy to do all that. What we can't do, and what I can't do as Board of Trade chair, is put it in a position where our membership is funding this event. So I'll have to make some decisions where we scale it back. So if we want the full 4 days, the full bands, the full deal, then yes, we need the money. Can we do it at a lesser extent without it? Sure.
Okay, Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adam, you did answer my question, and that was going to be regarding the grant funding program.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether you're sure or unsure about the subsequent year's event, I would certainly encourage you to apply this fall according to the process. We've got a bunch of other groups that do that.
I assure you, I was going to say, I assure you there's been a lesson learned here to do that. Yeah.
Refresh my memory. Did the county offer any financial support last year?
It sure did, yes. It was the same amount at 5,000, yes.
All right.
And we use that again to just, all we're doing with that money is paying the bands.
Okay, Councillor Broughton.
Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Adam, for continuing with this event.
Yeah,
It's
you
been
bet.
ongoing for years, and
This will be 51.
yeah, and there was a lot of activity that went on in the past that unfortunately has dropped by the wayside, so I congratulate you and your group for keeping this alive. The question I have is, have you struck a budget for this whole thing, what it might be? That not, I mean, the whole weekend?
Yeah, you know what, we have done that, and it didn't occur to me to bring it. And I'm not being evasive, it just didn't occur to me. The total budget is somewhere around 80,000.
How much?
80?
Wow. Thank you.
Well, I can go into why that is.
No,
Okay, all right.
I know in the past, and I go way back, where we had a committee struck, and we funded this, the town of Simcoe. We used to, I mean, it's a weekend where it draws a lot of people into the community, too. So, I mean, there's
Yeah.
money to be made by everybody, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Sure.
Further questions to Mr. Ferry? There was, last year, there was $5,000, as was mentioned, from the mayors and councilors' grants to others account. Mayor Luke?
Well, there'll be some discussion here. I'd like to move, Mr. Chair, that we receive Adam's deputation's information.
Okay, seconder, Councilor Black seconds it, that we receive the deputation of Adam Berry regarding the Lynn River Music and Arts Festival request. Those in favor? You may be seated, Mr. Berry, thank you. And Mayor Luke, calling you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question I have is for you through to Mr. Johnson. It's somewhere behind me, I think. He's still here, yes. Mr. Johnson, I think it's fair to say that there is no money left in the grants for 2018. Through the chair.
Through the chair to Mayor Luke, that's a complicated question to answer. We earmarked $7,000 for the Habitat for Humanity project, and the property that was earmarked for that fell through. So we haven't spent that $7,000. However, if the Habitat for Humanity comes back, we may have to have that fund committed. If that $7,000 is to be used for the Habitat for Humanity, then we have $900 left in that grant program. However, if that $7,000 is not used in 2018, then we have that as a amount to use as well.
Okay, Mayor Luke?
Would you like a motion?
Yes.
I'm going to throw out that we, that council approve $3,000 towards this project from the grant money.
Seconder? Councilor Wells seconds that, okay. Councilor Black, I heard you had to say your hand.
Well, I'd like to put an amendment on to increase it to $5,000.
Okay, amendment. Do we need a seconder for the amendment? Seconder for the amendment, Councilor Brunton? Okay. You moved the amendment, Councilor Brunton seconded. Speak to it, Peter.
Yeah, speaking to the amendment, and the reason why is I wanted to hear from James, and James has given his rationale, and I can't really see the Habitat from Humanity being able to come back again this year, maybe the next year, and we can allocate the funds at that time. So I'm speculating that those funds will remain as is. So based on that and the need of the Arts Festival, that's why I've moved the amendment.
Okay, it's been duly moved and seconded. Further discussion on the amendment? Don't see any discussion. Okay, do we vote on the amendment? Those in favor of supporting the amendment, and can you repeat that? What was your number? 5,000? Those in support of the amendment for 5,000? Those opposed? 5 opposed. Okay, that's lost, Peter. And we'll move on to Mayor Luke's proposal of $3,000. We had a seconder, I forget who that was. Councilor Wells. Okay, sorry, John. Any further discussion on that? Councilor Oliver?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure I can support it. I appreciate what the mayor's trying to do, but the fact that Adam answered my question in the affirmative, that we did fund them last year. I'm sure we had this discussion last year about applying to the grant program. This would be a perfect match for a grant, an ongoing grant, if you like, albeit they have to apply every year. So I guess I'm struggling to rationalize why they did not do it. And if we grant money again this year, they're going to be here again next year, I fear, and it will become a perpetual last-minute kind of request.
Okay, Councilor Luke, Mayor Luke.
Well, Mr. Chair, certainly everybody around this table supports this great event. 51 years, yes. And God, I thanked the Board of Trade, and I will continue to say to them, thank you for picking up from the Rotary to keep this good festival on the Civic Holiday Weekend going in downtown, in the park area. Mr. Chair, every year we ask people to have their applications in for the next year by the 1st of October. This is not a secret. I mean, if you apply and you get the grant and you don't need the money, you don't take the money, you leave it in the kitty. So I'm not trying to penalize the Board of Trade from their request from 5 to 3, but everybody else has to submit an application, they have to put in their financial statements, and then here we are about a month away, and we got a request for $5,000. So I want to show something to support, but at the same time, goodness, if you got a dire need for $5,000 for an event in 2019, get it in October. Get it in so that it can be looked at and judged, and the money give out proportionately to everyone that applies. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion. We do have Mayor Luke's motion on the floor, second by Councilor Wells. Basically that we grant $3,000 to the Lynn River Music and Arts Festival. And I'll call the vote. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Okay. Thank you, Adam. Good luck with your festival. Okay, the time is 1:29, and we're going to recess this council and committee meeting. Going to call on Mayor Luke to come forward and lead the Board of Health discussions.
Me. Got that. Those. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Health meeting this July 3rd, 2018. Chairman Columbus, you're just right on the money with your timing. You are some good here for our 1:30 start. Thank you. Again, we're web streamed, we're televised here, so if you got a cell phone, if you just make sure it's not going to ring and disrupt, that would be appreciated. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest for this Board of Health meeting? I see none declared. I want to get on with the approval of the agenda. Moved by Board Member Wells, seconded by Member Sonnenberg. The Board of Health agenda be approved as presented. Anything to add? If not, those in favor? It's carried, so we'll proceed as written on our agenda sheet for this meeting. Let's go to page 3. You will find there the minutes of the May 1st, 2018 Board of Health meeting from last month, actually 2 months ago. Any errors or omissions to be brought to my attention? Seeing none, I'll declare those minutes adopted. That is item 3. We'll go to item number 4. There are 2 consent items on page 7, HSS 18-32, Youth Volunteer Initiative Smoke-Free Movie Event, and item B. Under consent, on page 13, this is a memo from Dr. Elizabeth Urbanki, our interim acting medical officer of health, and this is an update that we get each month to the Board of Health. Is there anything you'd like to separate? Otherwise, we'll put them under one motion to approve them as presented. Okay, I'll proceed. Board Member Wells has moved. Member Sonnenberg has seconded that the two consent items A and B be approved as presented below. A is the Youth Volunteer Initiative Smoke-Free Movie Event be received as information, and that the memo from our interim acting medical officer of health, which is an update to the Board of Health, be received as information. Anything discussion on that motion? I hear none. Those in favor? That too is carried. Page 17 of your agenda, this is HSS 1831, celebrating 10 years of Norfolk Pathways for People. I don't believe Michelle is here, no?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michelle Crowley is not with us this afternoon, but Michelle Line, our program manager from Community Health, will be presenting the presentation this afternoon.
Very good, thank you. Okay, I see Michelle, and she can take the microphone. We'll let her present 1831. Hi, Michelle. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So thank you for having us. So today I'm presenting on behalf of Michelle Crowley, who couldn't be here today. It's a very exciting report. It's an information report that we've provided to you as our Board of Health. Just updating you on the status of us celebrating a 10-year anniversary of a really important community coalition, Pathways for People. So we do have a presentation format, so we do have slides that I just want to walk you through. Just in the report, it's details, and we've just got some pictures to show you some of the successes over the years. So working with our community partners and volunteers is always a very huge asset for our health unit. And over the past 10 years, we've had a really dedicated engagement with Norfolk Pathways for People, who, as I had mentioned, is our community coalition, and they advocate for the development and improvement of connected pathways, which is really worth celebrating. And I'm sorry, I don't have a clicker, so I'm not sure who. Perfect, thank you, Steph. And so you'll see here, these are just some of the logos that represent a few of our local groups that work on Pathways for People. So the Turkey Point Mountain Bike Club, the Lynn Valley Trail, Silver Spokes, as well as our Waterford Heritage Trail. So in terms of how it all began, back 10 years ago, so encouraging healthy, active living has long been a public health mandate. And getting that message out was easy, but ensuring that people had safe places to walk and cycle was a new route for us to explore here in Norfolk. So rather than focusing on individual and personal choices to either be or not be active, we started looking at the environments where people work, live, and play. We started talking about walkable communities where walking routes are safe, direct, comfortable, and convenient for all pedestrians. Things like street lighting, availability of continuous sidewalks, and a variety of shops, services, parks, schools, and workplaces within walking distances of homes all contribute to very walkable communities. So whether people choose to leave the car at home for short trips or they have no choice due to age, ability, or socioeconomic status, providing infrastructure to keep vulnerable road users safe is definitely a key to healthy communities. So this is just a picture here to show what walkable communities look like, some of the infrastructure in the built environment. So in terms of when we began, so back in 2007 was when we hosted our first workshop in May, and on the next slide there's just a picture of the roster of some of the volunteers who had signed up that day. And so some of the community outreach to find members of the public who also saw the value of walkable communities led us to the establishment of what is now called Norfolk Pathways for People. So this here is just showing you we, as a committee, have hosted many public trail events throughout Norfolk. The first one was in 2008, so just some pictures there. So the group hosts about 2 to 3 trail events throughout the year, and that's to promote the various trails across Norfolk County. In 2008, there was actually 120 people who attended the first event. In 2009, the group requested that Norfolk Council declare on an annual basis that the last Sunday in September be Trail Day in Norfolk, and so that's why their walks are always on that date since then. In 2010, so the World Health Organization, they designate a World Health Day every year, and in 2010, the theme was 1,000 cities, 1,000 lives. So communities around the world all closed their streets to vehicles and opened them up for people. And we had an opportunity here in Norfolk, in Port Dover. We closed the streets on Main Street and in Powell Park, and we had lots of different activities. We also hosted something in Caledonia as well. We had an open streets event that day. And the next slide just shows some media coverage from that day, as well as Port Dover with the street closed. And that brings us over to the Share the Road campaign, which many residents in Norfolk are probably familiar with and have seen signs around the community. So the P4P, or Pathway for People members, first brought the Share the Road concept to Norfolk after seeing similar signage in other communities across Ontario and Canada. As cycling becomes more popular for locals as well as for bike tourists, the signs act as a cautionary reminder for drivers to be aware of other vulnerable road users. The Share the Road message is promoted to both drivers and people on bikes. It's the same road, same rules, and it's the same rights, whether you're a biker or a vehicle driver. This here is just depicting an advocacy toolkit that our health unit had created and promoted and held some workshops within our community. And Pathways for People members, they took a very keen interest in helping us to develop this advocacy toolkit, and they provide some valuable input into the development of it, and it is available online on their website as well, so they helped with the promotion. The next one here is a picture of Point Causeway Ride. So an online petition was created in 2015 to support active transportation infrastructure as part of improvements to the Causeway and Erie Boulevard. So a list of 642 names of residents and visitors was shared with the project manager in charge of the environmental assessment of the Causeway project. Widening and the inclusion of paved shoulders on the Causeway will provide room for people walking, people biking, and also for drivers to pull over in case of an emergency. And this one here just depicts, so Norfolk County has an active transportation strategy component, and the Pathways for People volunteers were actively involved in the consultations that were held during the development of this strategy. It's really exciting to see that this strategy is coming to fruition through some of the public works capital projects. So just a couple of examples here on the screen. On the left, you can see that's Front Road, and you can see that there's the paved shoulder. And then on the right there is Swimming Pool Road, just outside of Delhi. And because that road is too narrow to have a paved shoulder, it depicts what's called a sharrow, and that's lane markings to show drivers and cyclists the correct line of travel for cyclists when there isn't enough allowance to have a paved shoulder. And then the next slide here just shows a sample of online. They do have a newsletter, and it gets distributed to members who have signed up to receive it. And they do have just over 1,000 individuals who have signed up to receive this newsletter. And all versions are available online on their website. So what's new? Most recently, just in June, members helped to plan and host the Squeaky Wheel Community Bike Fair in partnership with a number of other organizations and businesses, and that was hosted here in Simcoe at the Lions Park. And as you've heard at a recent deputation, members have also been doing some outreach to business communities, promoting the use of trails and business opportunities. So in terms of what's next for this group, I'm sure there's lots on the horizon, but one of the things that relate directly to Norfolk County with their Bike Friendly award that we've applied to, so we're going to be resubmitted in the fall, and P4P members are helping to fulfill some of those recommendations from our first submission. And then this last slide here is just showing some of our current volunteers on the trail. And of course, we are very grateful for all the volunteers present as well as past, because there's been quite a few past members as well in the past 10 years. So again, just want to say congratulations to the members present and past, and a big thank you for all the support in our community. So thank you. That concludes the presentation, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there questions for Michelle? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, Michelle, do you have any affiliation with the Tour de Norfolk event that takes place in July?
So through the board, or through the chair, sorry, I don't have knowledge of that. I'm with Michelle being away today. I can certainly look into that and get back to you if that's acceptable.
Anything else? It's been moved by Member Wells and seconded by Member Sonnenberg, the staff report HSS 13-31, celebrating 10 years of Norfolk Pathways for People, be received as information. Those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor, or Member Oliver, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think just before we let Michelle sit down, it's probably worth acknowledging, and she could do it for us. I think there are certainly some members of the Pathways for People group here attending today, so it shows their continued volunteerism even when they are literally not needing to be here, but they're here to show their support. So I think that's great.
Further? Not those in favor? That's carried. Michelle, just before you sit down, I'd like you to come up front with me. Frank, could you come up as well, and Rob? See me for a moment? Sure. Michelle? What was that?
You're the chair.
I didn't realize. Apologies. Which is your This is good. This is good. Thank you. It seems odd to think about the fact that not very long ago, there was no Waterford Heritage Trail. There was no Lynn Valley Trail Association. Not that long ago, there was no Turkey Point Mountain Bike Club. Haven't we come a long ways here in a short while? The coalition community of the Norfolk Pathways for People has played a huge role over the last 10 years in improving and connecting our pathways, our trails, for both people that cycle as well as people that like to walk and hike. And they've also been instrumental in promoting fitness in this county for everyone of all ages. So I would like to present them on behalf of council with a certificate of recognition, and this is certainly for the Norfolk Pathways for People. On behalf of Council of Corporation in Norfolk County, I extend heartfelt congratulations to Pathways for People on your 10th anniversary. We know this group of volunteers has worked very hard in promoting active living and should be very proud of their accomplishments, and we wish you success in the future. And it's signed this third day, July 2018, by myself and our clerk. Michelle, thank you for all your support.
Oh, okay.
If you like, right here, I'll get out of your hair.
On behalf of Pathways for People, I'd like to thank Mayor Luke and Council for this recognition of 10 years, and hopefully we're around for another 10 years and maybe get a 20-year recognition. You never know. Anyway, thanks a lot, and have a good afternoon.
Thanks again, Michelle, for all your work. Thanks again, Michelle, for your report, or your presentation and report. Okay, we are now going to page 21 of the agenda. This is HSS 18-21. This is one-time funding for 2017 to support enforcement of Healthy Menu Choices Act and implementation of Immunization in School Pupils Act amendments. Marlene, I'll see Susan is with you, so I'll turn it over to you,
Yeah.
Marlene, please, for
Thank you,
this
Mr.
report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to have Ms. Taylor present the next two reports, actually, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Board of Health. The purpose of this report is to update the Board of Health regarding one-time funding that was received on March 22nd, totaling $14,400. This funding was provided to our public health unit to offset the implementation costs for two legislative changes that impacted us in 2017. These included the new Healthy Menu Choices Act that was introduced and required public health inspectors to ensure compliance with food premises in more than 20 locations. And it also included the amendments to the Immunization for School Pupils Act, or ISPA, that required public health nurses to provide parents who request a non-medicinal vaccine exemption to receive an education session. Both of these programs fall within our mandatory programs and as such are part of our shared funding structure. And given that our current levy contributions exceed the 25% expected within this model, and that the timing of this funding letter was received after the 2017 calendar year, the total amount was applied retroactively to offset the levy for both counties. With that context, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Susan. Questions to staff? Councillor Black?
Move the recommendation in the report.
Any questions for staff? Okay, it's moved by Member Geisen, seconded by Member Wells, that staff report HSS 1822, one-time funding for 2017 to support enforcement of Healthy Menu Choices Act and the implementation of Immunization of School Pupils Act amendments be received as information. And that the Board of Health acknowledge that the Chair of the Haldeman Norfolk Board of Health and the County Clerk have signed the amending Agreement Number 7 to accept this funding from the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. And further, the Board of Health endorsed the total allocated amount of $14,400 be applied to offset the municipal levy within the 2017 levy support operating budget. That is the recommendation. Any discussion? If not, those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Page 31, Susan, I'll let you present HSS 18-28, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Board of Health. I do want to say up front that this is a lengthy report. The purpose of this report is to inform the Board of Health of changes to our 2018 budget. It was approved by the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, and to seek approval for several recommendations regarding the allocation of these resources. The report includes sections to increase on base and one-time funding grants that cover staffing, capital, and one-time upgrades. So we'll begin with the staffing requests. We highlight that there was an increase to our base funding to the mandatory programs of $124,700. Staff are recommending that this be allocated into two areas. One is to cover the salary and benefits for the existing permanent full-time panorama coordinator that was previously covered in one-time funding, and two, to hire one new .8 full-time equivalent public health nurse beginning in July of 2018, and that this would enable compliance with the requirements under the Ontario Public Health Standards and the immunization protocols. This increase will have no levy impact in 2018 and approximately $33,500 in subsequent years. The incremental gains from these additional staff will include that it will allow us to reach additional students with the target of increasing our overall vaccination rates. It will allow us to establish a common curriculum for the new vaccination education sessions. Will allow us to engage with primary care practitioners or family doctors to increase their reporting and immunization rates, and will allow us to standardize our annual fridge inspections and cold chain processes that will reduce vaccine wastage in our community. In terms of the one-time requests, the Ministry of Health has approved human resources to enable the full implementation of the disclosure practices that are required under the new standards. This will allow the health unit to hire one contract public health inspector for 9 months and one contract health promoter for 9 months. Remembering that the one-time funding is based on a fiscal year, these 9 months contracts would start now and carry us through until the end of March of 2019. These individuals will guide staff practices through the creation and implementation of standardized inspections and associated documentation under the new regulations. They will also prepare materials for owners and operators to ensure that they are aware of the regulation changes and the associated roles and responsibilities required from them. And over time, staff anticipate that this standardization will contribute substantially to the quality of the environmental health program and will allow the health unit to implement disclosure to inform our community. The third section of the report looks at one-time funding grants that allow us to recover $35,000, and those are outlined on Table 2 on page 32, and they include the Hedgehog upgrade, that was the software upgrade of $16,800, the Dental Clinic Infection Prevention and Control upgrades of $8,200, and the Public Health Inspector Practicum student of $10,000. So that $35,000 becomes a direct levy impact in cost recovery. And the capital grant of $8,200 that has been approved for the Caledonia generator will have no levy impact to us because we anticipate that we will be able to purchase and install that generator within that $8,200. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Susan. Any questions on this report? Member Oliver, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Susan. Susan, I understand the increase in base funding of $197,000, and you've outlined what staff intended for this to be used for. Is it an option for us that we could simply use this money to help reduce the overage that the municipal levy is paying now in our cost-shared programs? We know we're several $100,000 beyond the cost-share formula. Would we not simply be allowed to use those dollars to reduce that overage?
Through the chair to Councillor, to Board Member Oliver and the remainder of the Board of Health, yes, we could certainly do that. We could use the $124,000 to offset the overage in the contribution of the levy. I would suggest that if we were to do that, then we would find ourselves looking at how we will deliver the services required under the new standards and the associated requirements therein.
In other words, how we would be able to deliver those mandated programs without the additional new staffing allocations?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. Well, it would be, I'll wait till we have some debate, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Further questions, Susan? Marlene? Okay. The recommendation to deal with this report is outlined on page 31. I will need a mover and seconder. Councillor Black has moved. Board Member Wells has seconded. I'm not going to read all of it. I'm going to highlight it if that's okay. Black and Wells have moved and seconded that 1828 report be received as information. We acknowledge that the chair and the clerk have signed the amending agreement number 8, and further that the $124,700 base funding increase is to cover the salary and benefits for existing permanent full-time panorama coordinator, and also to hire one 0.8 FTE public health nurse to comply with the requirements of the Act. Further, we acknowledge that there's no tax levy increase in 2018, and a levy impact of approximately $33,500 will take place in subsequent years. Further, that the board endorse a one-time capital proposal which is outlined below, including the hiring of one contract public health inspector for 9 months, one contract health promoter for 9 months, and one contract public health inspector practicum student. And we again recognize that there is no levy impact from these temporary positions, and that the approved 2018 levy support operating budget be amended as outlined. Excuse me. Okay, discussion. Member Wells, then Oliver.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, on two of them, I see that we are going to hire for 9 months, 2 staff for 9 months. Could I ask Ms. Taylor, does she think we'll be able to find staff willing to work for 9 months?
Through the chair to the Board of Health, yes, I do believe we can.
Mr. Oliver, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Susan, in light of my question a moment ago, and I'm looking at I guess the 1, 2, 3, third paragraph of the recommendation, that's the important one relative to the base funding. It says the 124,700 in new program base funding will help cover the salary and benefits for the existing permanent full-time panorama coordinator. In other words, we're paying for that person now with levy dollars. Is that in one sense a correct statement? And this would help to offset that, i.e. under the cost share formula?
Through the chair to the Board of Health, that is correct.
Okay.
This was a position that previously was covered through one-time funding, and then this year they have moved the one-time funding into our base funding.
Okay, but then in our 2018 budget, had we assumed this happening, in other words, or had we budgeted for it
Yes.
with our own levy dollars, I guess is what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, so through the chair to the board, we did include this position in our 2018
Yes.
budget, and so it would have actually been a direct levy impact
Okay,
in its
all right.
totality.
Okay,
Yes.
then I do feel better about that, and I appreciate that explanation. The new FTE, obviously, I still would struggle with in the context that we would be creating a new position, i.e. 0.8 of one. But I'm encouraged, at least by your explanation regarding the panorama coordinator. Thank you.
Anything further? And finally, on page 73 is a communication item from the City of Kawartha Lakes. The resolution is regarding the 2018 annual service plan, including the 2018 budget for the Halberton Kawartha Pine Ridge District Health Unit. It's been moved by Member Wells, seconded by Member Sonnenberg, that this communication item A be received as information. Any discussion on the information or the motion? Those in favor, information, that's carried, thank you. Any other business to come before the Board of Health? It's moved by Wells and seconded by Sonnenberg that bylaw 2018-08 BH, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Board of Health for the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit at this Board of Health meeting held on the 3rd day of July 2018 be passed, signed by the mayor and the deputy county clerk and affixed with the corporate seal. Those in favor? That's carried. Chairman Columbus, that concludes Board of Health. Do you wish a 5-minute break here at 2 o'clock, or you want to get back and get going? You want to keep going then? That's okay with me.
Charlie, you got my papers.
You sure you want to keep going? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You are.
And I wrote it here.
What else?
No, I think I'm
No,
good.
that's my own guess.
I'm good, thanks.
That's it. Sorry.
No problem, no problem. Okay, councilors, we will reconvene our council and committee meeting, and we are on 7H, staff report CO 1820, this is on page, let's customer service review update, and I'll call on our CEO to make comments on this report.
Afternoon, Council. Again, a pleasure to present this report to you for your consideration. Customer service has a long history here at Norfolk